The Pentagon delayed implementation of its new rules on the press after widespread backlash from journalists who said that the Defense Department, run by Pete Hegseth, former Fox News host, incredible times we're living in, that it amounted to pre-government censorship. The updated rules that they're doubling down on say that journalists are only allowed to ask the government for the approved narrative, and that anyone who dares to commit the act of reporting will likely lose their credentials. These rules explicitly declare that if you solicit information from the Defense Department, which Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump now call the Department of War, it's this bizarre rebranding effort to make it sound super cool and macho, but it's an unofficial name, that if you solicit information from people who work in there, these are government workers in the Defense Department, that it's not protected by the First Amendment. It seems quite clear that Pete Hegseth is really uncomfortable with reporters having their own independent ability to report on what is going on and talking to the many thousands of people who work in the largest department in the government, saying what they want or talking to reporters about what's quietly happening behind the scenes. And it seems like Hegseth is very uncomfortable with this lack of control, right? This sort of like authoritarian view that we're seeing the administration take in general. It sounds to me like, once again, news organizations are not going to sign this updated rules list. What do you think?
Well, CNN has basically said their reporters aren't going to sign it. I can't imagine that a number of news organizations, most major news organizations, would sign these draconian rules that cede a lot of control to the Pentagon, and basically say that any act of reporting, I mean, they use fancy or weird words like soliciting information. That means basically reaching out to people and trying to understand the real narrative, the non-government narrative that's being fed to them by the Office of Public Affairs. That means basically we're saying reporting is against the rules. That's what they're saying. Any
Just
sort of
basic
reporting.
journalism.
Yeah. Anything other than parroting government talking points at the Pentagon is no longer in keeping with the Pentagon's rules, which is shocking. And I also think that Pete Hegseth is not getting enough flack for this, because this is a man, John, let's remember, who for years on Fox News mocked liberals for safe spaces, for being snowflakes, for being thin-skinned or whatever, triggered. And here he is at the Pentagon erecting a giant safe space for himself, right? I don't know if we should call him Safe Space Pete or Snowflake Pete. What is? I don't know. We should come up with a name for him. But that's exactly what he's behaving like, and I don't really think he's gotten enough flack for this, because he was one of the top cultural warriors, mocking people and trying to present himself as macho, like you said, super masculine and tough. And here he is behaving like a snowflake who can't stand any sort of light touch of scrutiny. Doesn't want reporting out there. And also, this is a man who pretended to be very pro-free speech, trying to very overtly use the government to, again, chill speech in a very important agency. It's not like the Department of Defense, which we still refer to it here at Status as, because Congress has not renamed it. It's not like they're up to nothing there. It's a pretty important government agency or department to cover. And so, anyway, the idea, I just think it's remarkable that he's doing this. And also the rules, I obtained a copy of them, and they're absurd, John. They're like, so just so people understand the rules, I'll just read to you part of it. It basically says, an advertisement or social media post by an individual journalist or media outlet that directly targets Department of Defense personnel to disclose non-public information without proper authorization would constitute a solicitation that could lead to them pulling their press pass. So if you post on social media as a journalist saying, if you have a tip about something, let me know, that now breaks the rules at the Pentagon. And they present that as possibly recklessly endangering American lives, which is wild. And it goes beyond this, John. News media now are not allowed to even use a cell phone camera to take pictures or even sketch something. If you see something in the Pentagon and you were to draw it afterward, that would break the rules. It says, it shall be unlawful to make any photograph, sketch, picture, drawing, map, or graphical representation of the Pentagon reservation without first obtaining permission. This is like wild stuff. Like this is nuts. It goes on. It says the use of cameras or any other visual recording devices on the Pentagon reservation is prohibited. And it even says in here, note that this prohibition applies to the use of apps on social media or on mobile devices that utilize the front-facing camera, such as FaceTime or the taking of selfies. So, I also think this, by the way, applies to the parking lot because I'm pretty sure that's part of the Pentagon reservation. So if you're, taking any sort of photograph, you're FaceTiming someone, you can be banned now. They'll take away your badge. And so I don't know why any news organization would frankly agree to any of these rules, because it seems like the moment they agree to them, they're probably going to have their press pass taken away for daring to do any reporting.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's quite clear what's going on here, that this is an attempt to squelch any kind of public understanding of dissent. It is an attempt by Pete Hegseth.
Safe Space Pete, that's his name.
And his top staff to create a safe space at the Pentagon where he can do whatever he wants without the public having any visibility into it. They want only a government-approved narrative that's out into the public. Just for a moment, rewind to when Pete Hegseth was on Fox News, sitting on the couch, yucking it up with Fox and Friends staff, and President Joe Biden put together something like this that would ban Fox News reporters or any reporters from being able to report on a pre-approved narrative by the Biden administration. And just imagine his response. Imagine Sean Hannity's, and even their journalists, right, who cover the Pentagon generally fairly. Let's be honest. Like the Fox News Pentagon reporters are pretty good. And this is just a completely outrageous thing. This is an important line, though, I think, for news organizations to take a stand on, including those on the right. If you're willing to cede your independence, your ability to do reporting, what even is your job anymore? You just take a script from the government and just deliver it to the people? I mean, this is blatant authoritarianism at that point, right? You basically lost your ability. It's a North Korean style, the lady who comes on the air and reads the Kim Jong-un statement to the mass. I mean, we're getting there if that's what's going to happen here. So
that's literally what they want. That's exactly what they want. They portrayed themselves for years, John, as free speech absolutists, but it turns out they're speech tyrants. That's how they behave when they get in power, and it's a dangerous precedent to be set. So. I also don't really think, to be quite honest, they have really much leverage here. Like, okay, so reporters can't be at the Pentagon. Well, they have cell phones, and
right.
They can still communicate with sources on cell phones, like right down the street, in their DC offices. So not really sure that matters too much. I also, don't know, maybe Pete Hegseth, who also has never reported a story in his life, but has been an opinion talking host. Understands how reporting works, but typically speaking, that is where most of the reporting is happening, not like having physical access to like offices. It's not like the New York Times reporters are like walking, willy-nilly through the Pentagon and saying, oh, hey, knock on the door. Hey, what secrets do you have for me today? I'd love to, give me the secrets. That's not how it works. Like they have relationships, long-lasting relationships with people. And honestly, I think it probably benefits the Pentagon more to be interfacing with these reporters and trying to give them the government-approved narrative in person than to alienate them and say to, kick them out of the Pentagon, because now, they don't have to take, I guess, the Pentagon calls, or they're not going to be in the building when the Pentagon does its briefings. And I think that hurts the Pentagon. I mean, and we should also finally say too, John, this breaks old tradition for many, many, many decades on both Republicans and Democrats. And Donald Trump himself was asked about what's happening at the Pentagon a couple weeks ago, and said that he was not on board with it. So Even Donald Trump, who's himself a man who's trying to chill speech and banish critics, doesn't like it and at least interfaces with the press.
Yeah, I mean, it makes you wonder if this is really going to work. I think there's no credible news organization in the world that's going to sign this thing. The worst case scenario is you get kicked out. And then you're faced with a situation like almost every other journalist in the world, which is we have news to cover today. We don't necessarily have access to, inside the building where the people and sources that we're covering work. And we have to do the hard work, which is to try to, get reporting, go behind the scenes, reach out to people. This is what we do every day at Status. It's not a handout. It's the hard work of doing the journalism part, which is finding the real story behind the scenes. And we're seeing in this Defense Department extremely questionable, potentially extrajudicial decisions, like these now use of military force on these civilian boats in the Caribbean, taking airstrikes and killing people on these boats under the guise that they're, apparently going to be drug dealers, but there's no trial. We have no proof. I haven't seen any proof myself of this. So intelligence can be wrong. And I think that very clearly we are seeing just what you described, a very safe space for the snowflakes who don't want any criticism, any questioning of their decision. And I expect no news organization is going to sign this, and it's going to be a standoff. And maybe not long from now, we're going to find out that everybody's being exiled.
Thank you for watching Power Lines. For more analysis and insight, subscribe to our YouTube channel down below, like this video, and you can watch more of us right over here.